Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. With 300,000 consultants worldwide and a sterling reputation for sophisticated retail and technology mandates, Capgemini helps us dive into consumer behavior and attitudinal changes across 12 countries, including Canada, to help us understand post-COVID consumer. Today on the Voice of Retail, I sit with Vinayak Madappa, Strategic Advisory Partner, Consumer Products, Retail and Distribution, Capgemini Canada. Taking lessons from his roots in elite cricket and applying them to the world of consulting and retail, Vin shares with us the results of Capgemini's latest thought leadership work, Capgemini's Consumer Trends Report 2022, What Matters to Today's Consumers. But more importantly, Vin is generous with its global insights as we probe some of the most interesting results of the study, like consumers shopping direct from brands and the growing niche of paid 2-hour delivery.
On the survey front, you'll see that Canada generally sticks to the average of of what's happening across the board, whereas certain countries, especially US or UK, tend to be in the leader quadrant.
Let's listen in now. Vin, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. I've yet to speak to someone from Capgemini, so it's a real treat. I saw the research you put out, and I said, "Hey, what a great opportunity!" You look like you've got the retail sector in your background and your purview, so it's a perfect opportunity.
Definitely. We've been doing some exciting stuff in the research space, so happy to share more insight on the publication.
Well, fantastic. Now, big global company, where are you based? Are you based here in Canada, and whereabouts am I reaching you today?
Yes, I'm based out of Toronto in Canada, in the Bay Street offices.
All right. Well, listen, let's jump right in. Let's start a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself, your personal professional journey, and your role at Capgemini.
Sure. So on my personal journey, I guess I'm a consultant today, but I started off wanting to be a professional cricketer, having grown up in India.
Yeah,
cricket is quite a fanatical religious thing, and I played up to the provincial level, or if you say in the Canadian, or probably the provincial teams or the junior teams. And then post that, I got into consulting. I started my career with KPMG, focused on a lot in the telecommunications and retail space. Post that, I moved to South Africa, where I joined PwC. I spent 10 years with PwC between South Africa and Canada, and that's where I focus more around data analytics, AI, automation across industries. And then in Capgemini, having joined here in the last year, my focus is in the advisory business unit, and our objective is enhancing and growing our footprint in the Canadian market. So my role is trying to identify, where the market is going, what capabilities and solutions that Capgemini offers we can take to our clients and help our clients on the journey in transforming their organization, meeting their strategic objectives.
So, as an elite athlete, is the consulting world, was it attractive to you to become a consultant because of your discipline and your focus that amateur sports brought to you? Talk about that a little bit. I mean, did you grow up and maybe this cricket thing is going to work out, but I really want to be a consultant? How did you approach that?
Funnily enough, it was the chance to continue to play cricket for a bit more in a semi-professional capacity, which I thought, consultancy would give me that freedom. A little did I know I was completitely wrong. I should have
gone on the Friday, maybe when you're back at home office. Yeah.
Exactly. I miscalculated that one, about 15 odd years ago. But that being said, I think consultancy was something I was drawn to more for the excitement. Around learning about different industries, learning about different capabilities. And if I look at how my career has panned out, it's allowed me to move across different domains and broaden my horizons quite significantly. So that's kind of the key drive as to why I still, focus on consultancy.
Right on. Now let's talk about Capgemini. So in my background, way back at Hudson's Bay in the late 90s, 2000s, we had an engagement with Capgemini. Haven't heard your name lately in circles. So tell the listeners, they would know of Capgemini, of course, but tell us all about the kind of the scope and scale and particularly Cap in Canada.
So Capgemini at a global level is one of the leading organizations, technology services organizations, where we partner with companies around transforming and managing their business operations with a focus on leveraging technology, data, AI to enable that. We are about 300,000 strong globally across
Wow.
50
Wow.
countries, right?
Yeah. Wow.
We've been in this, we have a 50-year heritage and deep industry expertise. Capgemini globally has also grown via acquisitions of some of our key strategic banners and engineering banners, which you can find on our website. We are, fueled by driving innovation, design, strategy, and connecting ecosystems within organizations to help establish platforms for success for clients.
No, when I think of Cap, again, based on my experience, which is 20 years old, I think of you as a sophisticated technology integrator and as you say, platform. So I was intrigued to see you doing some consumer research. So let's talk about the consumer research. So you've got what's the study? What matters to today's consumers? So why don't we start at the beginning? Take us through a bit of the methodology, who you talked to, how and when, and then we'll dive into the study and what you'd like the listeners to learn from it.
Perfect. Yeah. So for the survey, what matters to today's consumers? What we did was we surveyed across over 10,000 consumers over the age of 18 across 10 countries covering North America, Europe, and the Pacific region. And the focus of this survey was across various age categories, from the Gen X's to the baby boomers, as well as other variables and factors such as self-identified gender, self-identified location, household demographics, socioeconomic factors such as education and income. And we focused the survey during October and November 2021. We also conducted a follow-up survey taking about roughly 10% of our base in December 2021 to explore additional questions, especially pertaining to the online in-store shopping and spending patterns that you would see the customers go through.
It's fresh baked data, right? I mean, that's very
Yes.
recent data, right? Very recent. Now, to be clear, you talked about North American, so there is Canadian data in it. Is there Canadian cuts of the data, or how should we think about that?
Yes, it is. Yes, we have broken it down. So the North American data is broken out between USA and Canada. And
great.
Similarly, we have a breakdown for the European markets as well. So happy to talk a bit more about that as we go along.
Right. So we're trying to figure out, I love your title, What Matters Most. We're trying to figure out, all of us is trying to figure out all kinds of different things. And your study is kind of a mix of behavioral and attitudes. Let's talk behavior. So Canadians, one of the things that jumped out at me is that, 45% of Canadians are shopping more directly from brands. And I wanted to know your thoughts on that. Is this a COVID era phenomenon? Is this fundamentally consumers think there's somehow a better experience or more value, or maybe the vendors are in stock, or it's e-commerce, or what do you think's going on there?
That's a great question, and Michael. And I think there's various factors which play into this conversation, especially for the direct from vendors. One of them is around, of course, the pandemic playing a key role, the impact on supply chain. But I think also what we're starting to see is consumers are starting to look at buying directly from brands, largely based on a couple of key factors. One of them is looking at the loyalty and experience that they get. They want a consistent experience. They want to be able to get, they want to see the benefits of their loyalty to a certain brand, and they believe by engaging continuously with these banners, they would the brands, they would actually start to see that benefit in terms of pricing, promotions, and benefits. The other aspect, which was quite interesting to see, was the fact that they were starting to look at aspects pertaining to their values and how the brand values associated with them. And about 55% of the respondents believe that, they would shop with a certain banner because they believed, their brand values associated with them, largely around ESG, with a focus especially around sustainability, packaging, and whatnot. So we started seeing that, there are benefits that consumers are looking for as they shop direct with certain with certain vendors.
Well, I want to hang on this for a little bit because it's so interesting to me, and of course, interesting to the audience. And that latter part, I guess you could say, well, you could get that at any retailer. I mean, if you're looking for the brand, you're looking for the brand on shelf. Whether it's you could get it direct or get it from a retailer. That first part is pretty intriguing. Building loyalty, because in my experience, some brands are very, very good at direct selling. Others are just kind of getting into it. And the experience is I found very generally hit and miss. Some is great, some is, not so great because they're just kind of getting into this space. And I find and you mentioned loyalty, and I love talking about loyalty because, generally we would think, well, if I consolidate all my shopping of all my different commodities, let's talk fast moving consumer goods, into one place, I build more loyalty rewards, if we think about it that way, than individually. Do you think that's changing? Do you think people are saying, I find inherently a reward from shopping direct from that brand, but it means a lot more shopping, right? You fill your basket of 20 items. Does that mean you're going to go to 20 websites to fill your basket? How are you thinking about this when you reflect on those results?
So that's a great comment, right? And I think where loyalty plays a role, it goes hand in hand with the convenience aspect. And a lot of the direct to vendor shopping is shifting into a bit of a subscription based service, and the study points that out, is that they believe that subscription based services eliminates the planned shopping, and it's place the order once and you kind of forget about it. It's going to come every month at your doorstep, right? Or
it is great for low engagement products. I mean, your laundry, you don't get a lot of experience or joy from buying not to bust on the laundry detergent guys, but you don't. Do you think it's limited to that, or even expanding?
Interesting. I think it's in that domain right now. I think from a grocery, from apparel, fashion perspective, you'll see that people want to engage a lot more with the product, and hence you see also that that's starting to drive the back to the store trend that we're seeing post pandemic, or in the new normal as people are calling it. But yes, they are looking at certain products which are more on the, let's say, day to day usage that you would require. It's not your convenience-based shopping products. It's more the planned products that you would like to you buy on a monthly or a periodic basis that start to feature in the direct to vendor domain.
All right, you mentioned stores. I love talking about stores. We're seeing, if not a revival, a renaissance, if not a renaissance, a big focus. I mean, as you say, stores are here to say what 72% of consumers in your study are committed to continue to shop in store. The balance has got a difference. What does online mean to people? Is that home delivery? It's curbside, click and collect. This distinction between physical and online seems to feel like it's starting to become a distinction without a difference. What did the data tell you, and what do you think?
So one of the key aspects that we picked up, and I think it's important to also look at, pre-pandemic when it comes to online, and especially in the Canadian context, right? I think in the pre-pandemic world, there was a slight growth in the market cap in terms of, consumers engaging with online, with the various fulfillment channels, whether it be home delivery, click and collect. And I think even certain retailers were offering pickup at, train stations and at common locations. And I think why that was largely fueled through convenience aspects. Not wanting to have to go to a store after you've taken, spent 9 hours on a work day and 2 hours in public transit. Speaking from personal experience, that grocery shopping didn't excite me after that, right? So I think it was fueled from that. However, with the pandemic and what happened with COVID, a lot of that shifted into risk and aversion of risk due to the unknown threat of COVID at that point of time in the early part of 2020. and that drove the growth. Subsequent to that, you started seeing, as people started understanding the impact of the pandemic, behavior started normalizing to an effect, especially on certain items, largely focused around grocery. Health and beauty was something which is on the fence. You see, our data shows that people would still want to buy health and beauty online strong, but a lot of people were quite happy to go back into the stores also for the experience aspect. They missed the social engagement, they missed the social interaction, and just the aspect of going to a mall and that whole journey around it, right, as a family experience or as a single experience.
Yeah, I mean, I often talk about this spectrum between experience and efficiency, right? I mean, you earlier in our conversation, we talked about you can have your shopping very, very efficient. Just show up at your door in a subscription service. I mean, that's the ultimate of efficiency, or you can get an experience. What are your thoughts on the transformation of this convenience in a world where, today not many of us are working from an office, and I think in the future, many less, not everyone, will not work from an office. And then, the shopping patterns will change a bit. Maybe it's a bit less commuting, so maybe you don't need a locker to go station or a commuter station. How are you guys starting to think about that? You've got this big institute, right? The Capgemini Research Institute. I got to think that's taken up a few cycles. What does work look like? And then how does that reverberate on industries?
I think that's an evolving topic as we still going through the evolution of the new normal, right? Omicron threw a spanner in the works as most organizations, as most people were trying to get back to work. All of that's been paused in January, right? All of that's kind of been put on pause for the immediate future. But that being said, I think e-commerce is not going to go away. I think it's just going to become, we saw that 38%, of the consumer base still believe they're going to continue to have significant interactions. They're going to still have, spend more on groceries online with home delivery and more from pickup, and about 1/3 are still saying they'll still buy online but pick up in store just to maybe get out of the house, right? So I still see that there's going to be a balance, and customers want to be able to have that consistent experience of being able to buy the products across all the various channels, let it be online, digital, or in store. And the fulfillment options that they're providing are kind of just are becoming an expectation that I should have multiple options for fulfillment, and depending on convenience factors. And I think
that's a great point that I want to unpack for a little bit, because when I talk to retailers about their strategies and what's table stakes versus differentiators, and I think 5 years ago, if you and I were having this conversation, many of the things that are now kind of table stakes were differentiators. So it's like the goalposts keep moving, right?
They're constantly evolving, and I think as we move away from as we move into the new normal, fulfillment frameworks for retailers are going to become more and more critical. And you've seen a couple of trends happening. A lot of retailers have kind of focused on different fulfillment methodologies. Some have gone with the dark store, central fulfillment, micro fulfillment setups. Some have looked to leverage their store networks where they have significant presence. And I think they're still navigating through how do they actually establish this new this new network to support the customer's demands. And a great example of that is the buy online, pick up in store. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but sometimes you see certain you're competing for certain products in the store because the orders are being fulfilled at the store. Whereas with the advent or the introduction of micro fulfillment or central fulfillment centers, you can start to shift that operations into that domain and service those customers exclusively through that fulfillment channel, rather than create a conflict between the online shoppers and the in-store shoppers. And you can manage the experience consistently for everybody.
That's an interesting point. What happens on the shop floor, right? You're trying to outrace the person with the buggy filling orders
exactly
with the thing on their wrist, right? So interesting.
Yeah. And then the second aspect to that, so that's more on the experience side. And then when you come to the operations side, how do you leverage automation? How do you leverage innovation for the storing, picking, and packing of these products. And I think that's where companies have leveraged. Organizations, retailers are looking at leveraging. Large scale automation for case pick, unit picks in their warehouses and their regional fulfillment centers or micro fulfillment centers to start to reduce the cost as well as improve the operational efficiency so that consumers can start receiving their products within the prescribed timelines, as per the scheduled delivery or promises that organizations are making.
Well, and it's such a complex operation because it's almost now that you need that technology because you can't find the people. And
Yes.
I'm sure your institute is noodling around. Is this a longer term trend, or is it right now it's particularly intense? We're talking here in January, but will that continue? It's not like finding people was easy in the before time either, right? So at what expense does capital make sense to replace or augment your in-store staff in the back of the house, so to speak, right?
Definitely, and I think that's been a concern, and a not so secret concern of the retailers. Let it be for even in the warehouses or in the extended supply chain for the distribution and logistics as well. You have an aging workforce over there. So the need to evolve your back office operations becomes all the more critical in enabling, the future of your organization.
Are you seeing, now you were in South Africa, you came from India. Are you seeing similar trends around the world? Like when we step back, we've been talking about the Canadian context, but I have to think many of these are fairly global trends. Do you think Canada stands out in some way in the report that you want to call out that's maybe a bit different than what you see even in the US or anywhere around the world? Is something different happening here?
So, on a personal experience, I can't speak about the countries. However, they weren't part of the survey. So, for now, let me just focus on the survey, and I'll give you maybe a personal perspective later. Sure. On the survey front, you'll see that Canada generally sticks to the average of of what's happening across the board. Whereas certain countries, especially US or UK, tend to be in the leader quadrant in terms of the innovation. I guess a lot of that has to do with Canada's unique geography, the population density kind of being scale, right? So Quebec and Ontario dominating the population, whereas as you spread to other provinces which have, let's say, wide landmass, but large landmass, but sparse populations in terms of per capita. You kind of want to organizations that be very smart or savvy as to how they fulfill their demands. So promises like 2 hours in a region where you have your population is sparse is not ideal. Whereas maybe next day delivery or 2-day delivery promises in setting customer expectations becomes a bit more let's say realistic.
Right. Yeah. Because you got more density, right? More population density.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned 2 hours. This jumped out at me in the study that your report said consumers would spend to get 2-hour delivery. Is that a shift in attitudes? I mean, is that, well, I don't have a car, I'm not paying insurance, I do the math, I can justify. I mean, who needs something in 2 hours? Like, really? Like, sometimes it baffles me, maybe I'm the wrong generation, but I don't need very many things in 2 hours. But is this elevated beyond, well, if I can get it, I'm going to do it? But the interesting thing is I'm willing to pay for 2 hours? Talk about that a bit.
That is interesting, and I think we saw that initial trend, in the UK market when some of the big box retailers launched it, and then that started shifting into other domains. I think the 2-hour window or the 2-hour promise was, something that I guess humans are creatures of convenience. And I think with the convenience and with everything, being more available on hand, especially with technology, some behaviors of convenience shopping have shifted online. And, instead of running down to the store and getting it in, for a game day, if I'm watching the football, next weekend's or the hockey, I know I can, order that in the morning and, have it at my doorstep maybe 15 minutes before the game, and I don't need to waste half an hour, I guess, to run down to the store and prep for the game. That's just an example for myself.
Yeah, I get the run down to the store part. I mean, I'm all over that. I do a lot of click and collect and grocery, but I don't know if I need it in 2 hours. I'm just trying to probe: is that some kind of attitude change. I mean, I've been tracking this my whole career. Is like, it's a niche. It'll never be a thing. I could see it free. I mean, free. If I can get it 2 hours, but pay for it. I mean, that's so interesting to me. No.
It's a bit about understand behaviors, right, and understanding the attitudinal and aspirational behaviors of consumers, and then leveraging the nudging to customers to see which customers would take up the product, and then if that's sustainable, I think they still push that, they still keep that ball rolling, and it's very much a North American or an American attitude,
big city North American, right?
Exactly.
I want it now, but I live in rural Canada. You're not going to get it in 2 hours, right? Kind of thing.
Exactly.
All right. Well, this has been great. Now, the last question for you. Advice to the retailers listening, and the format here is 2 starts and 1 stop, based on what you read in the report and your experience and what the report talks about. 2 things that retailers should start doing in 2022 and beyond. 1 thing maybe they should stop doing. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe it's an old habit. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the first one for the starts will probably come as no surprise to any retailer or any organization, is the focus on data and digital, right? We've conducted other surveys with a focus on data mastery and digital masters, and what we found is that especially in the CPR organizations, that only a minority of these organizations have a strong foundation in data-driven decision making. And I think that's where, and if I take the Canadian context, you look at some of our big retailers. They are, they're family businesses or started off as family businesses. They've grown through acquisitions. They're trying to cater to the various audiences in the market, but they probably need to start to integrate their ecosystems technology-wise in a more effective manner, so that you can start to understand consumer behaviors, get a 360 view of the customer, to actually inform those decision-making, as well as personalization starts to become, personalization at scale starts to become more important. You saw that consumers are starting to spend a bit more if they are getting personalization offered to them. So I
guess you got to pick a spot, right? You're either going to be very, very, very efficient and therefore convenient, or you've got to figure out what experience looks in the context of who and how you go to market. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think data is at the core of that. And I think that a lot of people think data is largely focused around the consumer, the front of office. But in terms of operations, in terms of operational efficiency, data is critical and pivotal in managing, how we enable and fulfill everything to the consumers, as well as understanding, how the innovations can actually improve employee engagement. And I think that kind of segues into my second maybe start, is around the people. It's not a start per se, but it's an evolution. I think what's starting to happen is we're seeing that people are, employees are starting to look at, evolving their skill sets, and I think organizations want to start to provide that to them, move away from, let's say, more manual activities to more automated activities, engage people in terms of upskilling them, encourage low code citizen-led development for day-to-day operations. And I think that would also start to drive innovation in the organization across different levels, and then feed into the broader digitization of the organization.
All right, 2 great starts. What's your stop? What's your advice?
The stop. That's an interesting one. I guess from the survey, if you looked at it, one of the stops which came out to me personally was, today people are still willing to pay premium for products which align to the brand, to their personal values, especially around sustainability, environment, information. I think if you see a lot of the respondents believe that while today they're okay to pay a premium, they believe that it needs to become more affordable, more in line with the, let's say, less sustainable products which are out there in the market, because that starts to become table stakes going forward, right? And I think understanding of how people are viewing their health and wellness as a priority, you want to start to customers need to, organizations need to start to listen to the customers and probably, normalize the prices of certain products.
All right. Good one. All right. Well, listen, this has been a great discussion. Now, where can the listeners go to learn more? So this study, first of all, I can put a link into the show notes, but you've got this, the Capgemini Research Institute, which is a much lauded, awarded institute. Is that a great place to start? Tell us where we can go learn more and how to get in touch with you if they want to talk to you a bit more.
Perfect. From the Capgemini Research Institute, that's the best place for all our surveys. You can subscribe to it, and you'll receive the publications as we issue them over the coming year. Our website is another big area where you can understand more about our organization globally and from a Canadian context. And in touch with connecting with me, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn under Vinayak B. Madappa. Alternatively, you will have some leadership details available on Capgemini website, so you should be able to reach out to us through any of these channels.
Well, fantastic. Well, Vin, thanks so much for joining me on The Voice of Retail. I'll put links into all that stuff in the show notes, so if anyone's listening and wants to just click through and find all that information, I'll have those in the show notes. But for now, thanks again. Welcome to Canada. Welcome edition. Welcome to Capgemini, and not welcome, but thank you for being on the podcast, and look forward to more engagement here and for your future engagements. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate being here, and looking forward to engaging with in the retailers as we go forward.
Thanks for tuning into this special episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, be sure and click and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically twice a week. And check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Conversations with Commerce Next Podcast, and the Food Professor Podcast with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. Last but not least, if you're into barbecue, check out my all-new YouTube barbecue show, Last Request Barbecue, with new episodes each and every week. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of Emmy LeBlanc Company and Maven Media. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at emmyleblanc.co. Have a safe week, everyone.